Hello, everyone. Welcome to News Now, the Belmont Journal's daily update on what's going on in the community of Belmont. I'm your host, Roger Colton. The Belmont Gallery of Art has a new show that has just opened. Today, I have with me the two co-directors of the Belmont Gallery of Art, Adine Storr and Rebecca Richards. Thanks for joining us. Adine, can you tell us what just opened on December 18th?
Our first all virtual show, Facing You, which is a portrait show. And over 60 artists have submitted wonderful interpretations of the portrait. It's all about the human face and all the wonderful stories that it can tell. And we're particularly doing this because of all the masks. So takes the mask off.
And when we say the show opened, it is a virtual art show. What can you explain what that means?
Well, since our gallery is inside a town building, which is closed due to the pandemic, we thought we would take it into the virtual world, and we got a website, which is virtualbga.org. And we put up this new show and a couple of other things on that. So if people want to visit the BGA, they can do it from home now.
Rebecca, explain to us the media that are represented. When you do, and the question behind the question here, when you do a virtual show like this, are you limited to two-dimensional art, or do you have three-dimensional art as well?
We actually do have several three-dimensional pieces in the virtual show. And I mean, the bulk of the work is two-dimensional, but we have several sculptural pieces that people submitted. We have several assemblage pieces that an artist submitted as well. And the way visitors or viewers get to appreciate the three-dimensional work is we had the artists submit several photographs of the work so we could see it from different angles so people could appreciate, you know, the size, the sort of see it from all these various perspectives. So we are including several of those pieces as well. And we encourage people to think a little bit outside the box. I mean, one of the things about the show, when Adine and I were discussing it, portraits, it's been, you know, artists have been making portraits throughout art history, through the beginning of civilization. However, each artist interprets it differently. You know, there were several artists who submitted self-portraits. A lot of artists submitted portraits of family and friends, people who matter, who have some significance in their lives. So it's a really eclectic show. I think Adine and I were really incredibly pleased with the response to this call for the first virtual BGA show, because we had no idea. I mean, people are also, we're still in the middle of the pandemic, but the response was really pretty overwhelming in a very good way. I think we both felt really heartened by the fact that the gallery still matters to a lot of people.
Let's talk about that response for a moment, because you have over 60 artists.
Yeah.
I gather that that's unusual, either one of you.
For us, in some ways, that's not unusual, but I think because we were dormant for a time, because the BGA was quiet for most of the summer, you know, we weren't sure if we would have a few submissions trickling in here or there, and I think we actually have 67 artists in the show.
Right.
And we accepted most of the art that was submitted. And we had a number of new artists, and I think we were just really very, as I said, really pleased and grateful that the artists submitted the work, that we were able to put together a very full show. I want to give Adine a lot of credit because she built the virtual website. It was a huge undertaking.
And I want to talk about building a website, but before, Adine, can you characterize the artists that are showing pieces? Are they young or old? Are they local or regional? Is there any overarching way to characterizing them?
There's a great variety, really. It's mostly the Boston area. It's mostly the towns around Belmont or close by. But it's different ages and people with different perspectives. We have people who are artists 24/7 and people who are, biochemistry professors and PhD candidates at MIT and such. At different ages, it's a wonderful group of perspectives on the human face.
I want to talk a bit about what it means to have a virtual art show. Does that mean someone goes on to a website and takes a tour? So is it lateral or can you jump around? Can you describe what it means to present a virtual art show?
Well, one of the challenges, we usually have the walls and we have the actual pieces and we can put them up and say, this goes here, this goes there. In the case of what we've done, it was going to be either horizontal or vertical. In this case, you kind of scroll through, but there are different sections. We've divided the portraits into different things like family or work, icons, things like that. So you can jump around, but there is an order to follow that we hope people will follow because there's meaning to it.
Rebecca, I want to come back to you because you made a comment a minute or two ago that I want to explore a little bit. When someone is looking at art online, how do you, as the presenter of the art, do justice to a three-dimensional object? Did that question make sense?
Yes, but I do want to say that, I think that Adine and I are in agreement that when you look at work online, when you're visiting a virtual gallery, I don't think that it will ever replace seeing art in person. And, when people come through the gallery, or even when any of us go to a gallery, visit a museum, I mean, we can take our time standing in front of a piece and really exploring, the brush strokes or, the color palette and detail. And just, there's, sometimes art has their sort of subtle nuances that you can really appreciate when you see something in person. So I think that, that's something that a virtual gallery, at least at this point in time, is not truly able to replicate. That being said, I think that we've worked hard to try to give as, positive an experience for people to view this art as we're able to do with the technology that's available. In terms of the three-dimensional work, we have just I'd say fewer than 10 pieces, maybe, Adine, right? I think of virtual, of three-dimensional work. Again,
Yeah.
It's looking at it from the different angles. Adine mentioned one of our biochemist artists because he is a professor of biochemistry. He always does these amazing pieces with found primarily wooden objects. And they are, they're two-dimensional yet three-dimensional. We have some, as I mentioned earlier, we have a couple of sculptural pieces that the artist, took different photographs of. So you can look at it from the right side and the left side in a straight on view. Again, it's not exactly the same as being able to walk around a piece that's on a pedestal, but we've tried to present, something as close to that as we could with the virtual experience. And I will say, we announced to all of the artists, that the gallery was open, and the feedback from the artists has been extremely positive.
Do you have, either one of you, do you have any particularly notable pieces that you're presenting? And notable may not be the right word. Do you have something that you've fallen in love with?
Oh, yeah.
We always do.
I suspected that you would.
We both do. I mean, there's a piece I'm already purchasing, and that's one of the great things I think about running the gallery. I think I'm speaking for Adine as well. Is that when we're actually up in the BGA, we get to be surrounded by this, we're sort of enveloped in this wonderful experience with this beautiful art or powerful art, we're surrounded by. And when we see these pieces coming through, we have a lot of oohs and ahs and look at that, and that's wonderful. Some of the things are challenging in a good way. So yes, I have already chosen at least one piece that I'm interested in purchasing. And I can't speak for Adine in that respect, but maybe she's considering some things as well. But
Well, I enjoyed working with them. I got to be sort of virtually surrounded with these pieces of art, putting them together on the website. And it's kind of like having a new group of friends, and you're slowly getting to know them more. They're the ones that stand out right away. And then they're the ones who grow on you, and you see more and more as you spend time with them.
I think one of the things that's been really interesting is with any show, but I think with this show, like portraits, it's still within that very sort of traditional, well-known theme in some ways, going back, thousands of years, that, the way each artist interpreted it in their own way. And I think that was really fascinating to see as well.
I'd like to change directions for just a moment, because in addition to the general art show, and I don't know if that's the right term, but there is a companion individual art show being presented by Richard Hill.
Yes.
Can either one of you tell us about that companion solo show?
Adine, should I just jump in for a second?
Sure, go ahead, Rebecca.
So Roger, Richard Hill is a longtime board member of the BGA. He's an accomplished artist. He is very supportive of the artistic community here in Belmont. And as we were taking down our spring show, which we took down in September because we had no access to the BGA because of the pandemic, Adine and I had been discussing this, something that had to do with masks or portraits or whatever. And Richard had a body of work that was ready to go. So, we decided he would hang his portraits. He actually has a show hanging in the BGA right now. And he realized that, possibly nobody other than maybe people working in the building would be able to see the work. But I think the three of us felt as though it was important to still have the show up there. But it's also, it's on the virtual site as well. And his show, again, is the companion show to, the Facing You. His show is called Unmasked. And it's, I think, primarily like family, some of his family members, portraits of Richard throughout his life as well. And some of the work is really quite striking. And so we encourage people to, obviously they can visit that show on the site as well. That show might still be up when the pandemic is contained and people can see it in person.
Well, that's actually a good segue to what I wanted to end up with. And that is, it seems that when town buildings closed, it would have been very easy for the Belmont Gallery of Art to say, okay, we're going to shut things up until the Homer building opens again. Why did you feel it was important to continue to present art shows to the community during this pandemic?
I think that we went through a lot of sort of different emotions about it. I think that there was, sadness, disappointment. What are we going to do? We worked very, very hard with the spring show that was open for one weekend to the public when we had to close. There's a link to that on the virtual website so people can actually get a tour of that show virtually. And Adine and I were in touch during the summer trying to figure out how do we go forward. And I think there was already discussion, a number of other galleries in and around the Boston area and actually throughout the country had decided to try these virtual exhibits. And we're succeeding in different ways. And so we thought, well, why not try to do that? And again, the response, throughout the summer, we were hearing from artists, people in the community wondering what was going on. It was the BGA going to stay in business and so on. And I think we were starting, after a little bit of silence, then people started kind of coming forward, asking what was going to be happening. And so, Adine said she was game. She was ready to, build this virtual exhibit space. And so we decided, let's try it. Let's see. I think we both thought this is going to be very experimental. We might get 5 people who submit work. And as I said, lo and behold, we had, over 65 people submit work. And I think people were just grateful that they had this opportunity and excited. Because, artists, as you know, Roger, artists work in isolation. And so primarily they work alone. And so I think the fact that they got to be together, at least, virtually, has been important for them. And they've been having a lot of contact with me and Adine and so on. So everybody's looking forward to the day when the space can reopen to the public, which we're hoping will be, maybe by next summer, early next fall. We don't know.
Sure.
But this is the way that we're going to keep going forward for the time being.
That's great. Thanks for joining us. Facing You, a portrait show. Adine, one final question. We're talking about the show running. Is there a time period that people should be aware of? It is up and running now, and how long will it be available?
It will exist, as far as I know, on the website forever. But,
That's okay.
But we hope to do a new show and keep building on it. So there'll always be new layers. So we can have some nice artistic stratigraphy. There'll always be something new to see. But come and see it anytime.
That's
Even
great.
at 2 a.m.
Thanks for joining us. We have been speaking with the co-directors of the Belmont Gallery of Art, Adine Storer and Rebecca Richards. You've been watching News Now, the Belmont Journal's daily update on what's going on in the community of Belmont. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, Roger Colton. I'll talk with you again next time.